Hello and welcome to the Calmcast, a time to feel calm and think clearly. I'm Claire Downham, the Queen of Calm, a transformational life coach. I was a burnt out head teacher who finally made the journey to calm after years of trying, and I want to prevent you from having to do the same. The Calmcast is a series of short explorations, gently guiding you back to your natural state, which is calm and clarity. Just listen like you would listen to music, with an open mind and curiosity. There's nothing else to do. Now let's relax into today's episode. So today I'm exploring how to deal with feeling stressed, and it's going to contain as little how as I can possibly get into it because it seems that we're being pointed to do a lot when we're feeling stressed. And I'm going to point you in completely the opposite direction. I am going to point you towards not doing very much when you're feeling stressed. And I'm going to hopefully help you understand why. So when we're feeling stressed, that's generally because we've got more thinking than we know what to do with. We're busy-minded, we're wound up. And I would guarantee also that at that point, our thinking is not trustworthy. And when we are encouraged to do things while we're feeling stressed, like stress management techniques or something in the outside world, the decision to do that, the thinking that leads to the behavior that we do, is coming from that rubbish thinking. Because if you're feeling stressed, I guarantee your thinking is out of kilter. You are in a poor state of mind. And it really, when you begin to realize that, it really does not make sense to do things from a poor state of mind. I hope that makes sense. And whether it's a stress management technique or trying to do something in the outside world to change our circumstances to deal with feeling stressed, all of that decision making is coming from your poor state of mind. If you're feeling stressed, you're not in a fit state to do anything. So it's from that place that the how sort of falls away. Well, how do you deal with feeling stressed? Well, you don't do very much at all, really, because anything that you do will be manufactured from that poor state of mind, from that rubbishy thinking, from that untrustworthy thinking. So let's dive into some examples of this, which hopefully will be helpful. So I recently had a conversation with a lady who had been talking to another coach, and this other coach had pretty much advised her, which I'm not sure is the role of a coach anyway, but had advised this woman to move countries. She had guided this woman to see, or made this woman think, that the best thing for her to do, bearing in mind how she was feeling, how stressed she was feeling, was to not just like move jobs or move house, but to move countries. So if you kind of knew that a thought was not helpful, you wouldn't act on it, would you? Now, if you're feeling stressed, I guarantee that well, first of all, it's not coming from the outside world. So you could move countries, but you'll take your state of mind with you to the new country and still feel terrible because you can't run away from your own thinking. You can't run away from your state of mind. It will pass if you leave it, but it's not something you can manage or deal with. It's a bit like doing your own brain surgery, trying to fix your stressed out thinking with another layer of thinking. it's all kind of muddled up in the same messy thinking that hasn't helped you so far. So why would it help you now? It just doesn't make sense. So another example of this is, if you're feeling really stressed, have you noticed that you're probably quite short-tempered? I know if I'm feeling a bit riled up about something, I don't tend to really get stressed these days, but if I'm feeling a little bit out of kilter, perhaps I'm just feeling a bit tired, perhaps there's a full moon or a new moon or something, or, my hormones are out of whack or something, but I'm just feeling a bit, ugh. I pretty much, well, I warn my fiance because he's the person I spend the most time with. I warn him and I let him know, "Do you know what? I'm just feeling a bit out of sorts today. I feel a bit, ugh, and my state of mind isn't so good. I just don't feel so good. I feel a bit on edge, or I feel a bit ratty, or whatever." And I'll let him know because I know that I'm in a poor state of mind. And I know that there's a likelihood that, well, I'll mostly be critical. That's tends to be where I go when I'm not feeling so good, is into the critical space, into the, telling him he's not doing well enough, or he's not doing what I want him to do, more if I'm in that poor state of mind. And we've all done that, haven't we? When we've been feeling stressed and feeling, on edge and short-tempered, how we might deal with that is by snapping at the people around with us. It feels like that's a relief, doesn't it? A release of stress, but it isn't really. And yet again and again, we're acting from this off thinking. So when we consider dealing with stress, we have to understand what stress really is first. And then anything that we do comes from that place. So I used to think that stress came from the outside world, from my busy life, from my job, from my kids' busy lives, from my ex-husband and him living next door, and blah da 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 da. Lots of different things. Lots of different things I used to think were the cause of my stress. And as I saw more and more that it wasn't coming from the outside world, what I noticed is that I did less and less in the outside world. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't do lots of things. I'm creative, I'm productive, I'm sat here delivering this session for you. I do lots of things in the world practically and physically. But when I'm not feeling so good, I now do an awful lot less than I used to. I spend a lot more time still and quiet and allowing things to move on. Or I do things that help me to refocus my attention. So, if I'm feeling a bit out of sorts, I might just listen to a podcast, not because I think the podcast can fix me, but just because by just focusing my attention somewhere else for a little while, I find that whatever it was that was niggling me, it just kind of shifts itself. It moves on, because that is one of the things to know about the nature of thought, which is creating your stressed feeling, is that it has the tendency to pass. It isn't meant to stay sitting in your head. But when you try to deal with it, often that's what happens. It becomes a kind of pile of thought, or a thought storm, I suppose, inside your head, and then you can feel worse and worse. So when what I would love you to see in terms of how to deal with feeling stressed is that the answer to that question really is as little as possible. Because whenever you are acting from a stressed out feeling, you are acting with stressed out thinking, and you are therefore dealing with the stress with the same thinking, and that's why you get yourself into a bit of a mess, because you're dealing with stress with stress. You've got stressed out thinking, and you're dealing with your stressed out thinking with your stressed out thinking. Whereas when you stop and you pause and you take a breath and you give yourself a minute your system is naturally inclined to move, to settle, to take you back to your natural state, which is calm and clarity and contentment and confidence and all those things beginning with C that I love to talk about. They're your natural state. So you don't need to deal with feeling stressed. You just have to know that feeling stressed is an information, a piece of information. It's just a piece of information. And when you understand that, the decisions you make about what to do, as I said, become less and less. There's less and less to do, less and less to think about. And therefore, naturally, you find yourself in calm again much more quickly. So you don't need to, don't do anything in the outside world that looks like it's going to relieve you, like snapping at people, but also, you don't need to do anything else. You don't need to tool or technique it away. You don't need to go poking around in the past. You don't need to go and find the answer. The answer is that just in this moment, you've got caught up in something because you're a human being, and that's normal and natural, and that's what's supposed to happen. So I really hope you found that helpful. If you have, then please do let me know in whatever means makes sense to you. I know you know how to get in touch with me. People find me all the time in a perfectly nice way, of course. Enjoy the rest of your day whenever you're listening to this, and take care. Lots of love. Thank you so much for listening. There's nothing to do now but bring some awareness to how this is working out in your life. Listen regularly to experience longer and longer periods of calm. This has been the Calmcast with Claire Downham, Queen of Calm. Take care and keep listening.